In this video, we're going to talk about why aspiring wedding photographers shouldn't second shoot and what they should do instead. Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Andre Brown and welcome back to the channel. And in today's video, we're going to be talking about second shooters, mainly as it pertains to new photographers who are looking to get into weddings. Now, typically, if you're looking to get into wedding photography, the first thing that people do is tell you that you should go second shoot a wedding. And I think that that's completely wrong. Primarily because the job of a second shooter is a lot more important than what people give it credit for. So imagine you're second shooting your first wedding and some freak accident happens and something happens to the primary shooter. Now you have to take over that wedding day. Do you think you'll be fully equipped to go in and handle all of the stresses that come with the wedding day? Personally, I don't think so. Even me, as a wedding photographer that has been shooting for 8 years, I had never even really attended a wedding before I shot my first wedding. And I didn't have the opportunity to second shoot a wedding until the day after my first book wedding. So with that being said, I think that the job of a second shooter is overrated but underrated at the same time. Now, I know that sounds crazy, but give me a second and I'll get into the details. Now, I say that it's overrated because oftentimes I find photographers who are not qualified to be a second shooter who come in and either they want to demand some super high price for what their skill set is or for what they're going to end up delivering to you in the end. But the truth is that most people just aren't qualified enough to handle the role that a second shooter should be taking on. And that's why I say that it's underrated, because again, think about if you're second shooting a wedding, you're not qualified to be there as the primary photographer, and something happens to that primary photographer. You then have to step in their place and completely run that day. And a lot of people can't handle that. Now, me personally, I think that a second shooter should be just as talented as the primary photographer, because if not, if something goes awry, then that photographer could be in real trouble. Yes, there are times in my career where I've had to use a second shooter that's not the usual second shooter that I work with, and thank God nothing ever happened, but I have to then go in and approach that day as if I'm the only photographer. And even still, the person that I bring in as a second shooter has been with me on a number of jobs before, so I kind of have an idea of what it is that they're going to deliver to me, but I still don't trust them enough to fully relinquish the duties that a second shooter is responsible for. Personally, I think the duties of a second shooter is really cover my ass. So just in case I can't get to something, I have another photographer that's experienced enough to be able to go handle that for me. And sometimes it's not even just about experience. It's about being mindful that there are certain things that need to get done on the wedding day, and I know that I need to go handle those things. And a new or aspiring wedding photographer probably doesn't know all of the nuances that come into photographing a wedding. But I can make a video about just second shooting all in itself. And if that's something that you guys want, let me know down in the comments and I'll gladly do that. But as far as new and aspiring photographers, my suggestion would be to assist or third shoot a wedding instead of just diving into being a second shooter. And this is because as a third shooter or as an assistant, you have absolutely no responsibility. Nobody's relying on you to be able to get particular shots for the day. You don't have the responsibility of photographing decor or photographing family photos if that's not something that you've ever done before. Because let's face it, as much as family photos seems like it's something that should be straightforward, it's a circus. It's like a madhouse during that particular time, no matter what you do to try to circumvent that in the beginning, or whatever it is that you do to try to streamline that process. There are times, more often than not, that it gets a little bit haywire. Mom wants her own set of photos. Mother-in-law wants her own set of photos. The bride and groom are getting stressed out. And it can get even crazier when you're doing cultural weddings like Indian weddings or Nigerian weddings, where sometimes I can have 30 or 40 groups of family photos, not just, the smaller groups that we see at American weddings. But most definitely, if you're looking to get into wedding photography, my suggestion would be to assist or third shooter wedding. I know for me personally, that's typically how I bring people in. I always want to aim for 5 to 10 weddings as somebody assisting with me so that I can, one, get an idea of, what their eye is for wedding photography. They have zero responsibility. I'm like, just go out, shoot whatever it is that you want to shoot. And then that way I can see what their thought process is. And then from there, kind of fine tune what it is that they're doing to fit into the system that me and my team have. In that time of them third shooting, I have them shadow me as the primary photographer, as well as my primary second shooter, who's typically doing all of my groom stuff. That way, that person will be fully trained to be able to take on any task that I need them to take on once they start working with me on a more full-time basis. Because again, you have to be able to trust your second shooter. There are times when I'm with my main second shooter and I'm like, hey, I want to shoot the groom today. It's been a long time since I shot the groom, and we'll swap. Most people would think that's asinine to trust the second shooter with the bride, but I have that much confidence in my second shooter and what his abilities are that I can completely relinquish the duties of photographing the bride so that I can go photograph the groom. But I think the main thing as it pertains to second shooters is that a client shouldn't be able to look at my photo and my second shooter photo and be able to tell who shot what. The job is supposed to be completely seamless, and without having people that you work with on a regular basis, you work together, you train together, that's typically not the outcome that you're gonna get. So as an aspiring wedding photographer, build up a little bit of muscle memory about the different things that can happen at weddings, because every wedding is not the same. Although weddings are weddings, every wedding is not the same. There's gonna be different hiccups, and it would be to your benefit to kind of get an idea of how to handle those situations should any of them arise at any point. But if you're looking to get into wedding photography, my suggestion would be to go out and third shoot and assist on as many weddings as humanly possible. Go get that on the job training, so by the time you do get comfortable enough to become a second shooter, then you're able to provide the primary photographer with some amazing work that will get you called back on a regular basis. Because I know me personally, if I pull you in as a shooter and I'm not satisfied with the job that you've done, you'll never get a call back from me, never. That's why it's important to not misrepresent your work either. Oftentimes people take pictures and add them to their portfolio that are images that maybe they shot that somebody else set up, or whatever the case may be. You have to be able to duplicate whatever the work is that you're showing to people when you're applying for the job of being a second shooter. So you can't have some super beautiful image that's posed to perfection and then get on my job and then tell me, oh, I'm not comfortable with posing. But if your portfolio says otherwise, based on the fact that you provided these images that somebody else stylized for you, whether it be at other people's weddings, whether they be styled shoots, if your skill set doesn't match what you provided for me inside of your portfolio, again, you would never get another call back from me, which is exactly why I like to have people come on board as an assistant or a third shooter first, so that I can get a clear understanding of exactly what their skill set is and what I can rely on them for and what I can't. So if you're looking to get into wedding photography, then I would definitely suggest to go out and find some photographers whose styles that you kind of resonate with. People whose work is in line with what it is that you want to do. Not that you go out and copy exactly what it is that they do, but people whose work aligns with who you want to be as a photographer and ask to assist or third shoot. Everybody wants to run to the money as a second shooter, but when it's all said and done, you have to be able to perform at that task. So if you found this content to be helpful, then please give the video a like. And if you want to see me make a video that's just dedicated to the role of a second shooter, then comment down below. And if there's enough people who have interest in it, then I'll be happy to do so. But as always, thanks for stopping by the channel. Be sure to subscribe and come back and check me out in the next video.